So you've introduced your villain, you've given them an exciting goal and some meaningful motivation. Next thing we got to do, we got to figure out where your villain first appears in the story. Where is their grand entrance? What's up, guys? My name is Brandy Mcnulty. I'm a writer. I've been doing it for 10 years. I've won contests like Pitch Wars and RevPit, and welcome to my writing channel. Today we're going to talk more about villains, and we're going to answer the question, how soon should your villain appear in your story? And the answer is a simple one. As soon as possible. If you can get your villain in the opening sentence of your book, do it. And the reason why is because once you introduce your villain, you plant a seed in the reader's mind. You're telling them that bad things can happen to any of the characters in this story. And that's important because once you're established conflict, then you got the reader along for the ride. Especially if your hero doesn't have the most exciting introduction, you can buy yourself a few scenes where the reader says, okay, you know, I'm not too into this hero just yet, but you know what, that villain seemed really interesting, and I'm wondering, what is that villain going to do to that hero? One of the key examples for that, I mean, I know we talk about Star Wars a lot on this channel, but the original Star Wars movie where Darth Vader, you know, he takes over Leia's transport ship in the opening scene and he does a lot of Darth Vader things on that ship. That is a key scene that sets the tone for the whole Star Wars saga. You know, it's going to be this epic space opera, it's going to be exciting, there's going to be action, and even though the following scenes where they introduce Luke on Tatooine and he's wandering the desert and buying droids and drinking milk, it's forgivable because you open the movie with Darth Vader doing a lot of exciting stuff. Now I realize it's not always possible to introduce your villain in the opening line or even the opening chapter or the opening few chapters. That's okay. I think though at the latest you should introduce your villain no later than the 30% mark. Usually Act 1 of your story is going to be 20 to 25%. Try to get them somewhere in Act 1. If you can't get them in the opening chapter, maybe the chapter after that or the first few chapters. Maybe you wait until the inciting incident or the moment where your hero's everyday life gets shaken up. That's a scenario where it has big impact on your hero, and it also can potentially introduce your villain. Now, if you don't do it there, you could do it a little later in Act 1. That's totally fine as well. I think though, you know, once you get into Act 2, you want to have your villain at least introduced by then. And the reason why you want to introduce them in Act 1 is because that's usually the part of the story where you introduce your major characters. You want your villain to be a major character, and you want your audience to recognize that. Another reason why you want your villain introduced by the 30% mark is by that point in the story, your reader has already gotten to know the hero, the supporting cast, the world building, all that stuff. If you just kind of throw the villain in at that point, it's kind of like, okay, now I gotta get to know somebody else. You know, I thought we were moving, I thought we had the wheels in motion, and that can get frustrating for the reader. But if you get all those introductions out of the way early when the reader is expecting those introductions, then you can get the ball rolling in Act 2 and you can keep it rolling until the end of the story. Now, I'm sure there are some of you out there who are saying to yourselves, well, I don't want my villain introduced until late in the story, maybe even the very end. Maybe you're writing a murder mystery and you don't want anyone to see the villain until the end. That's fine, but remember, your villain should be impacting the story as soon as possible. So let's go back to the idea of the murder mystery. Okay, fine, you don't want to show your villain until the very end? That's cool, but make sure that villain is killing people early on. Make sure you leave a body in Act 1. Make sure you have the villain covering up evidence in Act 2, maybe burning down a building to hide something. Keep them active. Just because you don't want them on screen doesn't mean you don't want their actions on screen. As long as the conflict is there, as long as the impact is there, you can get away with waiting until the very end to introduce your villain. Question of the day, how soon do you introduce the villain in your current work in progress? Let me know in the comments section below. Thanks for watching, guys. Be sure to check out my other videos, hit the like and subscribe buttons for me, and remember to keep on writing.